So hello. Today we have Will Hahn, who is actually an alumni of SBCC Film Community, a huge part of the community here, and really big into camera department, documentary work. Today he's going to be talking about that as well as his involvement in the New York Jets new videography team. James, would you like to speak about Will's background?
Yeah, I think you kind of covered most of the ground. He grew up in Santa Barbara. Coincidentally, then went to SBCC and transferred to Northridge, correct, Will?
That is correct.
Right, and then through Northridge, he has eventually now found himself in the position of work with the Jets. We can immediately get underway if you'd like, Adriana.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, so Will, thank you so much for joining us. I would just really like to hear first about how you even got into film. I don't even think I know. Specifically camera department. What were those first steps like for you?
Yeah, I mean, thanks so much for having me. I've been waiting for this phone call for a long time. I saw everybody else from my class doing these, and I'm like, when the hell am I gonna get the call?
Bottom of the list you were.
Oof. And, a lot
Gotcha.
of other people have a lot of talent. Justin's a very talented person. Natalie's a very talented person, so I'm just happy to be here. Um, but the way I got into film, totally by accident. I wanted to be a motorsports engineer. I love race cars. I drove like race go-karts for a little bit. And I was like, I'd love to do this. And I went to go to DP's Engineering Academy, and uh, the first of a long list of rejections happened. And I kind of reevaluated, and I went to Santa Barbara High. And I remember sitting down with the guidance counselor, and they're like, well, what do you want to do for your elective now that you're coming here? And I'm like, I don't really know. They're like, well, we have this intro to film class. Would you be interested in it? And I said, yeah, why not? Like, let's do it. It was taught by Doug Caines, who at the time was the football coach of Santa Barbara High. And he taught video production in a really interesting way. It was, you are going to come in here and you are going to work. And this is more the upper level class. The intro one, you do your basics, your editing, your shooting, your shot sizes, all that stuff. But the advanced class was, hey, we're going to produce this show every week. It's going to air on Fridays. And yeah, it wasn't very good. It was a high school show. Like, it was not going to be very good. But what it instilled in me was, hey, this is like a job. We come in on a Monday and it's like a job, right? And that's how you're gonna learn is on set. Yeah, you're gonna learn in a classroom, but you're really gonna learn when you apply those skills on set. And I did that for 4 years. And his big thing was, you got to get out and you have to shoot stuff outside of class to go in this program. So I chose to shoot sports. I shot the football games, and that was one of the first things I did. And I loved shooting football, and I shot it all 4 years. And I thought it was super fun. And the cool thing was, I got in touch actually with KYT and all their news channels, and because their shooters would see me at the game, and all of a sudden, they had to go usually by the second half to go cut the package for the news at 11. And they knew I was there, so that I'd start getting calls. Hey, can we get your footage tonight? So we'd have to immediately pull a card after, and this is all going to come full circle pretty quick here. We'd have to immediately pull a card, cut a package, and it would go to the news that night. And that was a really cool thing. At like sophomore in high school, your stuff's on TV. Like, that's pretty cool. And then that actually led to my first job, and that was to follow Santa Barbara High's baseball team for an entire season for $500. And at the time, I was like, "Oh my god, I'm getting paid to do this! Somebody's gonna pay me to shoot video." And it was like, shoot every game, make a highlight package of it, and like make a hype video for it or whatever, and then like do highlight interviews with parents, coaches, kids, whatever, and then kind of document this season. And then I got to use all that stuff for the bulletin anyway, so like kind of worked out in the end. And that was my first job in video production. And then I kind of spiraled from there. I started freelancing. I invest in equipment. I'm doing all kinds of crazy things, like I'm going to car shows. I'm going and doing local TV commercials, and that was what I did a lot of when I was in Santa Barbara. It was mainly commercials. Um, SBCC actually kind of really opened the door when I got the job there, because it was like, oh, I'm doing content for this college. Like, you should hire me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
started doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Like I would. There was a weekend I flew out on Thursday to go shoot Shakira on Sunday, and then I flew back to go to school on Monday. That was a really funny one because I remember telling Curtis I was going to miss class, and he told me I better be in class. So I rescheduled my flight so I could be in class. I left class and was on a plane 30 minutes later out of Santa Barbara. And it kind of just spiraled from there. It just was day playing on stuff, getting calls, crazier calls. I kept growing and growing and growing, and then obviously my time at City College had to come to an end eventually. I decided, hey, I might want to transfer. I transferred in March of 2020. Obviously, probably the worst time ever in the history of mankind to transfer colleges, and I applied everywhere and I got rejected everywhere. I went applied to USC, NYU, Chapman, University of Michigan, which was my top. That's kind of a sleeper one in my opinion. And yeah, I got rejected, rejection letter after rejection letter, and that kind of like that really got on me. So at the end of it, I kind of had this choice between SF State and Cal State Northridge, and this is before we knew where anything was going to go. And the only school I got to tour other than Michigan, I guess I toured a couple of them, but the last one I toured was SF State, and I went, and this was like COVID was a thing. I remember being on a plane and like my parents were all worried because COVID was a thing in San Francisco and not in LA and whatever. And I went, I don't see myself here. I didn't like the Bay. I don't see myself here. So then you kind of get left with, wow, I'm going to Northridge. I've never been on the campus. I don't know anything about this department. I hope it's good. So I ended up at Northridge, and I, continue to freelance, continue to grow my skills there. And my last semester, I needed an internship, and I had been a hockey player my entire life, and I had some connections. So I made a phone call, and I got a job with the Los Angeles Kings. And I was a production assistant for the LA Kings for my final semester. Absolutely amazing experience. Just thrown to the fire. And it's crazy to like go from freelancing and day playing where like you don't really care about the stuff to like you're working for a pro sports team. Your stuff's going to be everywhere and anywhere. It's going to be on broadcast. It's going to be on their socials. It's going to be on the jumbotron. I remember I got to cut like multiple things for the jumbotron, like hype videos, and it was the coolest experience ever. Being in the stadium and being like, I cut that. Like that was the it moment that made it. So I get through hockey and we go to the playoffs, and it's super cool. I'll get into my job a little bit more later there. I'm sure you guys will ask about it. And it comes down to it, and you're a seasonal employee because you're just a PA, and you get released at the end of it. Even though you worked your hardest and you really thought you were going to earn a permanent spot, you get released, and they say, hey, maybe if you don't find anything, come back in the fall, and we'll go from there. And I was like, hey, I get it. There's not a lot of work in the off season for sports teams, so like the seasonal people get released. Thankfully, here at the Jets, I'm full time, so I don't have to worry about that anymore. But then I apply everywhere, and I for the first time in my life actually get some job interviews, which was pretty cool. I interviewed the Cincinnati Reds, Pittsburgh Penguins, bunch of sports teams everywhere. That was the biggest thing about sports. You got to be willing to move anywhere in any town in any state and just
So,
go.
can you run us
Yeah.
through kind of what those interviews even look like? Because interviews aren't necessarily common in this industry.
Yeah, no, I can hit you with that. Definitely stop me at any time, but and I will just keep talking. So an interview in the sports world is much actually like an interview like in a normal job. Basically, you submit a reel, you submit a resume, and the production team interviews you. Usually, it's like one or two of their producers, the director, and whoever. Like it was always like a panel of guys, especially if you made it in the later rounds. A couple of them I made like second and third round of interviews, and it's like first one you might only see one person, then you're starting to see like more and more people, and you can tell like, okay, this team's interested in me. And it usually was about like 40 minutes to an hour, depending on what it was. You show them your reel, you talk about what you did. Oh my God, if you don't have a reel, go cut one tomorrow. Like, I've never been asked for my resume before outside of these sports jobs because you usually, yes, remember they have an HR department, so they want to see a resume. That's not usually common in production, obviously. So I interviewed with all these teams, and the Jets called, and I thought, yeah, the NFL would be kind of cool. I kind of biased. I still miss hockey a lot. I love hockey, but the production level in the NFL is next level. And I'd always wanted to work at NFL Films. NFL Films is the NFL's documentary division. And I really wanted to work there since I was like 8 years old. Actually, even before that, because there was this movie called Truth in 24, which was about racing at the Le Mans 24 hours. It was shot by NFL Films. It's my favorite movie of all time. Super niche documentary, but like it's super well done. And it's hilarious to now work with NFL Films guys and get their footage. And I look at it and I go, wow, the NFL, this Truth in 24 movie, like you could have told me just watching football stuff, like NFL Films did this. Like it looks like a football game that they just swapped out football for race cars. So then I talked to the Jets, and the big thing I get talking about was, hey, they have a really cool documentary department here. And that was really important to me. I didn't want to just do social videos. I wanted to do really cool, big stuff. And hey, they do that here, and hey, they've got a lot of resources here, and oh, they really want me. Let's pursue this a little bit. And the team, like I could have never comprehended the amount of talent that is on this team. I am the smallest part of this team. We have two guys, Henley and Pablo, that do our social videos. They are incredibly talented guys, and I could never do anything close to their level of hype videos. Henley will walk in his office on Tuesday, and he has to get something done on Wednesday, and he hasn't started yet. And then Wednesday morning, he's got like this incredibly complicated transitions and all. It's like, dude, how do you even think about this? Same with Pablo. And then we've got Frank, myself, and Siebold, who are kind of on the documentary side of things. Frank is also heads our like sponsorship things and tie-ins. He heads those types of videos. And then we've got a couple PAs, Sarah Conti and Jordan. They do various tasks, logging, coming out on shoots with us, whatever needs to be done that day. Hey, they're stepping up to the plate and they're supporting us. And it's definitely really cool that we've got this great team. And then we've got like three guys that are at the top. Seth, Ubbs, and Dan. Dan's our head of photography. Ubbs is like our personal PR guy and takes care of logistics for us. And then Seth is the director of our documentary series 1JD. So between that, we do a ton of content with just those people, and that's not even everybody.
Wow. Can I ask, because you have, had experience in narrative, and this is obviously like a very different crew setup, a very different environment. In your experience, is this a pretty standard documentary crew setup, or is it more specific to your situation?
The NFL is bigger, much bigger. In hockey, I was a PA, but I I called myself a third producer because we only had two producers. We had producers, the general term for like camera guy, cam op, DP, whatever. In this sports world, for whatever reason, they call them producers. So technically, my title is a producer / editor here at the Jets. But at the Kings, we had a head editor, a head guy, and a head ops guy. One producer, two PAs, and another editor. It was a tiny team. But we also did like 1/5 the amount of content we do here at the Jets. And at the level, like we had no player access there. Here we can call a guy up and say, hey, do you want to go to the city with us? And like we'll go shoot you going into New York City doing whatever. Like we followed Garrett Wilson on an Oakley shoot that actually didn't make the cut. But that was super fun behind the scenes shoot that we got to go on.
Okay. Are there any other differences between narrative and documentary that you can speak on, or skill sets that might speak
Oh, yeah,
documentary side?
Yeah, the skill set side of things. Narrative, it's like, I guess it kind of like it carries over to documentary sometimes, depending on the shoots you're on. Like you think of departments in narrative, right? Like sound guys in narrative typically aren't editing stuff, right? They're typically not shooting stuff. They're typically not, doing other roles on set. They're the sound guy, right? And then, you come to us, and we're trying to do what Hard Knocks does with HBO with 1/10 the people, and that's tough. That's a tough task. and if you haven't watched Hard Knocks before, go watch it. I think it's the best production value documentary series out there. It follows the NFL in training camp, but holy crap, those guys are talented. Like we're not on that level yet, but I strive to get there with us. The the way this all ties together, you watch Fox Sports come in the other day to do an interview with Zach Wilson, our quarterback. They had a sound guy, they had multiple cam ops, they had ACs, they had PAs, they had grips, they had electrics. And then you like see our group and you're like, wow, like I can't believe we put together what we put together with what we have. But sometimes you just you need to put that together and go work harder to go create this great content. And the best example of this is in one of my first weeks. I've been a DP my whole life. I've been a camera guy my whole life. I worked sound a little bit way back when, but I have like an ear for sound. Like I care about quality sound because people will watch shitty cinematography, pardon my French, but they won't listen to bad sound. And that's something that I learned really early on. And my boss was great when I came in because he was like, hey, if you see stuff that we're not doing well, like speak up. Like, I knew you're new here, but like you're part of this. You're part of this team. And I watched one of our docs and I went, our sound kind of sucks this week. It really is not great. We've got a ton of line noise and stuff. Like, do we have a mixer? Like, we really should take a field mixer to these things because that's been my experience of doing these high production value docs. Is like we take a mixer, we take sound people because having sound gets neglected, right? Like you always think like, hey, I need a DP, but you don't necessarily think, hey, I need a great sound person. When really they're just as important. If not, sound might be a little more important. And they said, yeah, we have a mixer, just nobody knows how to use it. Nobody's brought it up. And I said, oh, let me take a crack at it. I'm our sound guy now. I'm our A1. I run sound for every show. We have multiple shows that go on broadcast on CBS. I'm our sound guy. So it became quick. Hey, you're good at something. It might not be what you love, but you're a really valuable part of our team doing this. So that's what I've picked up. I'm our sound guy. I ran sound on a set for CBS this morning. I'm going to run it again tomorrow. I ran it on Tuesday. If we go out on a feature shoot for our flagship doc series, I run the sound. If it's the show I work on, I'm usually shooting on a game. If it's a road game, like I'm going to Denver this weekend, I'll shoot. We're going to be on an area mirror this weekend, probably, maybe an FX6, but probably in a mirror. But if it's on a home game, I'll run a mixer during the show, and I'll be typically by the bench, and I'm throwing a giant boom over the players, trying to capture this great sound, or the players talking and stuff. Because we'll mic up guys occasionally, but sometimes you only get one mic at a game, so obviously you want to get good sound from everybody. So if the quarterback makes a great play and he comes off and he's talking to his coach on the bench, we want to hear that. So I'm trying to get that boom as close as we can. We can hear him. And that's just when I'm on set. So then you've got that second component of I do post-production too. So that was something, I always cut my own stuff for when I did freelance. So I was like, yeah, I cut. So I cut a documentary last week that went on CBS. That was really fun. My first delivery to CBS, and I co-cut it with one of our other guys, Bobby, who I can't believe I didn't mention earlier. He's also incredibly talented. And that was, we cut a whole documentary in 4 days.
Wow.
We had nothing on Monday and had a show by Thursday.
It sounds like you're wearing a lot of hats, or rather the hats that you decide to take on is kind of up to you. Is that pretty standard in like a documentary or field work type of environment where people are mixing and matching based on just what needs to get done?
Maybe not all documentaries, especially when you're getting into like the ESPN and Fox world, like the high budget stuff, Hard Knocks, those people are kind of more departmentalized. I think it's more common in like these smaller teams that are, say, the internal team of what we are at a sports team. I think that's pretty common. You have to wear a lot of hats. The other key thing in sports is speed in editing, right? You might think, AJ, give me a good example here of the last thing you had to do for Curtis. How long you have? A week and a half, 2 weeks?
No longer, like 3 or 4.
Yeah, I cut a trailer today. I cut a whole trailer for our documentary series in 2 hours today. Um, and it just, you get accustomed to having to work at that speed, and you grab a cup of coffee and you just go. And like you put that pedal to the metal and you grind it out. Thankfully, in this situation, I'm cutting off of the show that is being worked on. Like it's a post house situation. We work off a server. So we've got everybody's cutting on a day we're not shooting. So like Seabolt's cutting a game scene, Seth's cutting a game scene for Packers in Miami. I'm in their project grabbing stuff that they have grabbed for their stuff to go in this trailer, right? Seth's telling me, hey, I want this in my trailer, like, yeah, he's the boss man. You want what he says goes. He wants that in the trailer. Great, that's gonna be in the trailer. We're gonna cut it how he wants it. So I actually did a cut this morning and was like, hey, let's watch this back. And he didn't love it, which happens, it happens. You do your best, but sometimes, hey, you're not there. So after lunch, I just blew up the edit, was like, let's restart. And yeah, I cut the whole thing again in about 2.5 hours.
Wow,
And
that's
you can go
crazy.
watch it. It is live. Watch it.
Really?
It is on all of our socials except YouTube. It's on Instagram. I think it's at like 11, 12,000 views in 2 hours.
Oh wow. I would love to link some of your favorite work afterward we can send out to all of our members.
Yeah, definitely.
Um but another thing that I wanted to ask you about is, this collaboration of working with clients. So much of the work that we're familiar with is independent. What's that dynamic like? Was that hard for you to transition into?
Well, the funny thing is I did that before I did short films. I did client work before short films, which is super funny, right? I mean,
Yeah.
normally it's not close. It's totally the other way around. So I actually got people gave me a hard time at the beginning when I was doing short films because they go, these look like commercials. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's what I do. I shoot commercials. It's always like really bright, really white light, like you think about how you light a commercial and you go, oh crap, this guy that does commercials. But yeah, client work is tough. You kind of, I like doing sports and documentaries because, hey, I get to be a little bit creative, and I'm a big sports guy, so I get to be like on a team still. That was important to me. I played hockey my whole life. I love that team atmosphere, so I wanted that to stay. But when I was doing early client work, it's frustrating at first because like you don't get the final cut. The ad agency wants something different. You're going to give them something different, and that's okay. And you're not going to love what you do. I think it was DeVega said, maybe it's Curtis, or I think it was Curtis. You have three reasons to take a gig. The first reason is you get paid. And that's honestly the most important reason to take a gig. Is there money, and how good is that money? The second reason to take a gig is there connections. And I've done a ton of work just on a whim that something is going to pay off from this, even if it's just something like, hey, I'm going to go shoot this because I think it's cool. Maybe it'll look good on a reel. You go shoot cars at an event and people are going to think you were paid to be there. I'm guilty of that, but I made that stuff look good still. And then the third reason to take a gig is just because it's fun. And you have to have a balance of all those three things on a gig. And commercials, you get the most money, but you have the least fun, in my opinion. I think the ultimate goal for everybody is, hey, I want to go direct feature films for Disney. I want to go direct feature films for these huge studios. You're probably not going to go do that. I hate to burst your bubble. You're probably not going to go do that. I'm never going to be the one to tell you, don't go chase your dreams. For God's sakes, I'm working in the NFL straight out of college, in 2 years, only 2 years removed from City College. Any of you could go do this, right? The limits to my career are literal endless at this point. To make this jump at this age, like I'm so grateful to do this. But you might want to find something else you really like. Like I found sports, I found documentaries. I love doing that, and I get paid to do that. And most importantly, I get benefits to do that. I get health care. I get, those things that like you'd normally only see in a union. I get a retirement. Like when we're young, we don't really think about that, but that was something important to me. Like Yeah, I'm probably not going to make local 600 cam ops for a long time, and I'm probably not going to have health insurance. That's not good. So it was important for me to make this step. Oh, and I get paid every 2 weeks. That's nice.
Wow. Yeah, there's some serious perks, it sounds like, to this position.
We also work 50 hours a week. So
Wow. There it is.
Speaking on that, Will, in terms of like payments and such, is it salary based when you're working in the NFL, or is it kind of hourly based instead?
depends on your position. I'm salary. Typically seasonals are hourly based, but when you're in my position, we are salary based. And thankfully, in my position, we also get overtime, which is very helpful when you have to work 6 days a week for 18 weeks or like 20 weeks straight.
Are you signed on to carry on through the next couple of seasons, or is it after this year where they decide what they want to do in terms of next
Yeah,
year?
I'm here as long as they want to keep me here. So hopefully, I keep doing a good job.
Right. Okay, that's cool.
I'm glad it doesn't have that aspects of sports where like my contract's up at the end of this year, and
Right.
they're going to call me in a room and be like, hey, you were great, but we're releasing you. Good luck.
Yeah, just like Hard Knocks.
I'm glad that doesn't happen.
Right.
Would you mind speaking a little bit more on like the technical aspect of actually doing your camera work, maybe building your gear or what that was like to familiarize yourself with what was needed for these types of production?
Yeah, definitely. I have my camera sitting over here so I can talk about her a little bit.
Yes, the juicy stuff. Everyone wants to see the camera.
So this is the least built down she gets. I like shooting very much old school ENG type, like off the shoulder. I love doing. I think the Canon design of like hold the camera like this and like the FX6 is the stupidest ergonomic design you could ever create for a camera. I like it because it's like third point of contact and it's like more old school. You've got your buttons on the side here, your record, your shutter, your white balance, your function buttons, your NDs are over here. Like it all makes sense. Sadly, we don't have these at work. We've got area mirrors and we've got FX6s. I like to take the Amira whenever I can. And that's the other thing. Get some Amira experience when you're at City College because I put that on my resume, and that's one of the reasons they hired me. It's because they were like blown away that I had a Amira experience out of college. And I was like, yeah, we had Amiras at City College, and they like could not believe it. So the equipment you guys have access to, especially now at a Cine 2, is ridiculous. It wasn't even that nice when I was there. So take every advantage of all the equipment you have there, because the second you get out and you have to rent stuff, it's not fun.
I think we have a question from Santi.
Yeah, with the what did you mention? I think you said the Amiras. Do you have to be? Is that the ones that only the capstone class get, or you can do that through Cine too?
I don't know the specifics on it anymore. It was capstone only.
Yeah,
But
it probably still is, which unfortunately Capstone isn't running this year. So
I know. It's a real I mean, they're actually considering it for the spring.
I really hope that we literally have an entire we have two Alexas and a full set of Cook lenses just sitting in the storage locker because no one else can use them.
I thought it was maybe that was like a thing that was teased. It was going to be at Cine 2, but regardless, you have you've got FS7s. I think you have Panasonics. Even getting seat time on those is much better because when I was driving with my boss the other day and we talked about it, and they go, all these kids these days shoot on a DSLR and they think they can shoot, right? It's when you get on a big boy camera that you're going to learn very quickly you can't shoot, right? You can't take that DSLR and get that stuff that's going to go win you an Emmy.
Well, what do you mean? Like, what are the things that are really, really valuable to learn by actually getting your hands on a Cine camera?
I mean, the biggest things is, especially on a Cine lens, all manual, right? You got manual focus, manual zoom, manual iris, or prime lenses, whatever, depends, whatever cup of tea you like. And getting on a Cine lens, especially, is going to make a big difference because you're going to get a focus throw that is 300 degrees compared to 90. which is huge. Like that little tiny focus adjustment you used to do on that DSLR. Yeah, now it's this. And you got to get used to pulling that focus. At least if you're a solo operator. If you've got ACs, I mean, go enjoy your life. I don't have that. So the seat time on a real camera makes a difference. Knowing your native ISO. And then the biggest thing, yeah, go get on a great camera. Learn how to light. That's the biggest thing. Like you can make a DSLR look as good as an Alexa as long as you light it good. You know, the biggest thing about Aries is that they're just more forgiving lighting wise. Especially when you put a great lens on. But if you put a crappy lens on a mirror, it'll still look like crap. So it really comes down to how you light it. Like even if that's shooting outside, right? Knowing, hey, I probably don't want to near side key this. Like I want to be shooting at least like 3/4 towards the sun. So I'm getting a little bit of contrast here. And not everything is just flat. That's going to make a huge difference. Just that little step of turning the camera so it's in the right position with the sun is going to make your stuff look way better.
Wow.
If you need me to be more technical, I can get more technical.
I mean, I would be interested. I would be interested to hear the more technical side.
I mean, the bigger things, I also don't know where a lot of this group is at. Heck, I don't know how many people are on this call. I don't know who wanted to listen to me talk at this time. But the main reason to get on something like this is because when you get on something professional, granted, it has changed a little bit. Like the A7S III has like become a C camera for these bigger shows. You know, they need a crash cam, they'll go grab one of those. But like for a lot of times, like, hey, you need to get up and get on a red. Like you need to know this menu system. Like I shot my thesis documentary at Northridge on a Panavision. Like that was a whole nother beast of a camera.
Wow.
The camera itself weighed 50 pounds. Like good luck shoulder rigging that. I did it, but it was painful. So getting off and getting used to those scenarios where, hey, I can't sneak a DSLR in here. I need to sneak in, you know, a Dana dolly or a floor dolly because I need the support for this bigger camera. But you know, it does pay off in the end. Maybe not. You don't need to go get a Panavision for God's sake. So it was way overkill, but it was fun to do when it's free. Take advantage of that. There are companies out there that want to help young filmmakers. They're going to give you discounts, right? Take advantage of that. Schools, you know, using that equipment because the second you get out, nobody cares anymore. But the more technical stuff, like cine cameras are just next level. And it depends on the type of camera. Obviously, this is more like a dock cam because it's got the buttons on the outside. It's more solo operator type camera. It's got this viewfinder here, obviously. If I built it out, it would be huge. I don't think I'm going to because it'd take me too long. But it really pays dividends to go get some seat time on them. Even if, you know, if you go, hey, camera's not for me, that's okay. Everybody needs grips. Everybody needs electrician. Sound people, for God's sakes, you know, come take my job so I don't need to be a sound person anymore. I'm kidding. I have embraced it. I am the A1. I've earned the nickname Hollywood.
Oh no.
But it's good fun. So
Yeah,
get some
absolutely.
seat time on a cine camera.
Yeah, so I mean, how would you suggest that students get their seat time on cine cameras outside of
Whew.
college?
Well, City College is obviously the best way to do it because you go take Cine 2, you get access to a bunch of gear. Hey, that's the best way to do it on a budget. Outside of that, you know, rentals are doable. You know, think of the 10-10-10 film I did a couple of years back, and unfortunately at 10-10-10 you can't do cine cameras anymore. I think I'm part of the reason of that.
We film on iPhones this year, so
I know you do.
very much.
Oops. Are you in it? Are you
Yeah,
in 10-10-10? I'm one of the faculty advisors
I
or
saw
the
that.
alumni advisors. So my student was going to take you down.
Oh, okay.
No, it's, you know, for that one we went out and got an Alexa Mini with anamorphics. We were like, we're going to go throw money at this thing and go win. Like we're coming here to win, and it was awesome to win. Emma Steiner DP'd that for me. but it was like, hey, we have this opportunity to go have something in a film festival. Why? My mantra has always been, why make it look not great? Let's go make it look as good as it possibly can. What do we need to go do that? You know, I'm not saying go get that for every film. You don't need it for every film. But if you're going to do something big that has the potential to get you somewhere, think about doing that. If it's something that's going to live on your reel for the next 3 years and you've been wanting to make this script for a long time, go write some grants, go fundraise. Like this is possible. So, yeah, I'm so far away from my laptop. Can you read that question, or do we want to just get to that a little later with the Q&A?
Oh, there was a question?
I
Oh
saw
no,
something in the
sorry,
chat.
I direct messaged Will. It doesn't matter.
Oh, never mind. I can't. I'm so far away from my screen right now. I can't see anything. Never mind. I'll get to it later.
I was saying for the 10-10-10, but that for what it's worth, we shot Billy on a Sony A7S III, which because it's such a tiny camera, we were able to have like a lot more maneuverability, and that helped us a lot.
Yeah, in that situation, that's where those cameras pay dividends. Like the rigging you'd need for this camera versus an A7S III is very different, and they're used for different situations. I probably wouldn't take an A7S III out to one of our games unless it's on a gimbal. We use the A7S III on our gimbal. It's our gimbal camera, and we pop off and get some sick stuff with it. But it's used in a very niche role, and hey, that's okay. That's how we can use it to justify it.
Okay. Well, my final question for you before we hand it off to anybody who has some final questions is just, I mean, what would you suggest for somebody who's looking into getting into a role such as yours, something documentary or working for clientele or commercial type work? What would be their steps or things that they should do to prepare themselves?
Get out every day and shoot, shoot, shoot. The more you're out on set and working, the more you're going to learn, right? Go do the small local commercials. And when you do it, don't half-ass it just because it's $500. Go make it look good, right? Because they're going to tell people how good of a job you did, and it's going to lead to that next one. Or they're going to call you back, and then you can put that on your reel and say, "Hey, I shot this," And if you had half-assed it, hey, it wouldn't look good on your reel now, right? You still got paid for it. Like, go make it as best as you can be. Work hard at it. It takes effort. If you are here to half-ass things, you're not going to go far in this business, and that's okay. Maybe it's just not for you. But if you are willing to work for it, and this is something you love and put your passion into, go work as hard as you can and go be the best you can every day. You know, I was a hockey goalie growing up, and I always said when the team forward has a bad day, it's okay, nobody will notice. But as a goalie, if I have a bad day, everybody will notice because then the team's bad. So I never want to be the person to bring down the team. I'm always going to do my best to make sure the team is successful.
Wow. You've shared some really great values with us today. So thank you so much just about work ethic and teamwork. And, I also really appreciated at the beginning, you shared how you had this tremendous experience in high school starting out, and then you had a lot of struggles as well when you were starting out. So, that rise and fall of like, I'm doing so well, and oh, why is this so hard? I think is so relatable and so important for people to hear that that's an experience that everyone has.
Yeah, I mean,
So thank you for
everyone's gonna get
sharing.
shit on.
I would like to see if anybody else has any questions for Will. He obviously has lots of experience in lots of different topics, so feel free to get creative. Nathan?
Yeah, I will. So, you were talking about all the stuff that you could do with all the different cameras, and so last semester I was taking this cinematography class with Curtis Bieber, and the only camera that I used was the Canon 80D. So that's pretty much my only experience with the camera so far. And so that got me thinking, what kind of projects could you shoot with that camera?
So that's a very great question, actually, because this webcam that I'm using right now is an 80D. And what did I get my start on? An 80D. I shot all of my stuff on 80Ds for years. And eventually you grow up, you get past it, you go on to that next step, and I made the jump to Blackmagic from the 80D. I made the jump to a previous version of this camera, so that was a hell of a jump. But it was a jump. The advice I can give to you is, keep going, right? Go, if you really want to do Cine, go do Cine 2. It's a really challenging class. I remember I had, a lot of experience coming into Cine 2, and Curtis destroyed me. But I learned so much in that class that I use every day. The far side key, the contrast, and yeah, I should probably have a little bit of bounce and fill on me right now. But it is 10 o'clock at night and I got to work in the morning, so I wasn't going to do a full setup, but I do have a light here. And that's what really that class is a lot about, is about lighting. And that's great because, like I said earlier, you can make any camera look good if you light it good. So that's my advice. If you really want to do this, go take Cine 2 and go get some field time on some bigger cameras. I don't know what the deal is now, but obviously when I was there, it was like, hey, when you got to Cine 2, you unlocked more things. I don't know how they handle it now. Keep in mind, I'm like 2 years removed from CC, but yeah, it's a great class. You're going to learn a lot. Curtis is a great guy. I know that it might seem like he hates you, but he genuinely doesn't if you are working for him. I remember one of the last days we were on, I thought he hated me my entire time there. I thought, this guy hates me. And I had just won 10-10-10, and then COVID shut down the campus. It was like, this happened like 2 weeks before the campus got shut down. And I remember running into Curtis actually on my last day on campus, and he just was like super nice to me. And he was like, hey, I heard you won 10-10-10. Congrats, that's so awesome. You're the first one from City College to do it. And I'm like, holy crap, does Curtis like me? Is he being nice to me? Like, wow, it's such a revelation. And then you like look back on it and goes, yeah, he was tough, but it's tough love. He wants you to get great. So that's my advice.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, that's some good advice actually. I'll have to consider that. And that, and you also mentioned that going from the 80D to that other camera, you said it was a big leap. So I guess my other question is, what exactly is the hierarchy of cameras used in photography?
Oh boy, that's a loaded question.
How
much time do I have?
Have a little surface level.
Just do your best, because the only disclaimer, the only name I remember of the cameras is Blackmagic, because it's a cool name. So
yeah, so this is a Blackmagic. This is an Ursa Mini Pro G2. I would put on my list, this is obviously like, hey, this is a debatable list. Everybody's got their own hot take on it. I put Arri on top. I love Arri. I love the look of Arri. I love shooting on Arri. I love where the buttons are placed on Arri. I love the menu system of Arri. If I had to place a camera I don't like, it's red. I hate red. I hate where the buttons are placed on red. I hate the shape of reds. I hate how you have to use reds. I hate the menu system of reds. All of this is very important. I hope you're taking notes. Of course, I'm kidding with you. This is on the quiz.
well,
those
we're
are
recording, so I can just look at it later.
There you go. I always record my lectures. Those are the top two, I'd say, in the hierarchy. You've got reds and Arri. I like to lean more towards Arri. A lot of people have preference towards red. Of course, you've got Sony in that game now with the Venice. I don't love the Venice, but the Venice serves a purpose. It more comes down to what you like in a look, right? Do you want more digital? Do you want more filmic? Do you want more sharpness? Do you want more smoothness? It's all, you're going to learn so much as a DP because you're going to learn what you like. And that's a huge thing, right? But there are certain situations where you're going to get a client that says, hey, I want this look. And you're going to have to go figure out how to do that look. Even if it's not you, they might go, hey, we want this more hard light, and we want it on a red for these reasons. And you go, okay, we can do that, but you have your preferences, and that's okay. I chose the Blackmagic route because I think it gives a great bang for the buck. Yes, there is a ton of downfalls with this camera. It is ridiculous the amount of problems that it could potentially have. The biggest one being low light. This thing does absolutely horrendous in low light, but hey, not all of us shoot in low light, and that's okay. So if you're going to shoot stuff that is outside or you can light it, Black Magics can look as good as Aries on any day of the week. We're going to potentially use some as B cams on Aries. And you could match them decently easily. Now, that jump, I would not tell you tomorrow to go out and buy one of these. That's never what I'm going to go tell anybody. You know, maybe thankfully now they have like the pocket cinema cameras. Maybe you start on like a pocket 4K, right? You get used to like what that can do, and then you make the jump. Like I would never tell anybody to go out and buy a red tomorrow. It's going to do you no good. The reason I have this is because I freelanced for 5 years. I had to have something.
Yeah, I was gonna say I just remembered another camera name. Amari, was it? Yeah.
Amira. Yeah. That's,
Amira. Yeah.
That's what we have at work.
Right. I was gonna say I was, looking it up, and I saw the prices range to like what, $50,000. So
Yeah, and the Airy rep came by the other day with their brand new Alexa 35 that costs $80,000, and we're like, yeah, we're not buying this. Cool and all. Thanks,
Yeah.
Hans, or whatever the hell his name was, but we're not buying this.
Yeah, wow. I mean, you did a very impressive job of summarizing all the different cameras out there. But yes, I think Nathan, oftentimes students will look at rentals because obviously those cameras are very hard to afford. So don't feel that you have to go and buy a $50,000 camera to become a cinematographer.
Even the big guys rent cameras. We rented a mirror last week because we needed a fourth, right? Yeah, we have 3 Amiras at work. That's pretty sweet. But we needed one. We need an extra, so we called one in. When Fox Sports was here, we don't know for sure, but we're pretty damn sure that they rented a Venice and they rented some FX9. So like even the big boys rent. So don't think you need to go out and buy one. I had one for what I did, but not everybody needs to own a camera.
We have another question from Justin who came to visit you.
Oh, hi,
You might
Justin.
remember that guy. Justin has asked if you have, he says he admires you and your networking skills, and if you have any advice on how to network and meet quality contacts.
Oh my God, that's so important. And I really appreciate it because he's honestly probably better than I am. I mean, Justin's got a shit ton of skills. He just got off. I think I'm allowed to say, Justin, are you still here, Justin? Am I allowed to say what you just got off?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah,
Justin just got off Love Island. And that's so cool for him. Like, I'm over here doing this, but I'm looking at what he's doing and I'm going, how the hell does he get on that? Like, how do you get on that, man? So you're gonna have to have Justin back for another one of these. But essentially the biggest tip I can get is, I didn't do this until very late, but it's well worth it. Make a website. Squarespace, baby. This video is sponsored by Squarespace. I have a Squarespace site. It's very underrated, but I think it set me apart when I did this hiring process. That's why I made it, and I made it with a lot of my King's stuff. The second thing that I really recommend is make business cards. I always carry business cards on me. Now I have really sweet Jets ones, which is awesome. I made business cards, had my name, email, little logo on it, nothing fancy. This is where you can find my portfolio. And I passed them out whenever somebody would take one. And yeah, you're going to pass out 100 of them and get one response, but that's okay. It got me Shakira. I passed out a business card at a Porsche show, and I ended up day playing on a Shakira shoot a week later because they were like, "Oh, we have your card. Do you want to shoot this?" Like, yeah. There's money in it. I'm in. So print up some business cards. They cost what, $20 at Staples? It's well worth it.
Use Costco. Staples printing service sucks. Costco is so much better.
Costco, whatever floats your
Strong
boat.
opinions on business cards.
That and cameras.
Yeah, well, thank you, because I feel like that's a very practical thing that all of us can do, right? Just
And
to
I think
get our name.
if I had to think of, sorry, I just thought of one more thing, AJ. Be able to talk to people. Having a great conversation with somebody is so underrated in today. Learn how to shake somebody's hand too. That's a huge deal. Like, you might think it's small, but it's a big deal. And don't get like ooh and awed by people, right? Just say, hey, it's great to meet you. I have to deal with that all the time because I work in pro sports, and I've gotten to meet some of my childhood idols who actually sucked, which is unfortunate. But like, I went to some stuff with Leslie Ecker one time. I went to the Oscars voting, and this was like a super cool experience. And he was whisking me around to like all of his friends. He's like, "Oh yeah, this guy worked at ILM. He was on all of the original Star Wars, and he's got 3 Oscars." And you're just like, "Oh my god, I'm so lucky to be graced by your presence. Hi." But that's what you're thinking on the inside. But you got to keep your cool and be like, "Yeah, it's so great to meet you. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me as a film student." And that's the best thing. If you want to do this, you're a film student. Tell people you're a film student. They will take the time to talk to you. A lot of us want to help you. Um, I got to be on a Chevy commercial one time in Santa Barbara. I actually skipped Roger Derling's class to do this. My dad called me and he's like, "Hey, I saw some film trucks. Now, I don't recommend everybody go do this, but I walked down to the set and I just was watching. And I got talking with somebody from production design. And I was like, "Yeah, sorry, I'm a film student. I thought it was really cool what you guys are doing. I just wanted to watch." And they brought me over and sat me down next to the director and the producer and the client from Chevy. And all the craft services were coming around, and just was, "Hey, have a good time and enjoy it." And that was just such a cool
Wow.
experience for me, just to sit there and take it all in, so.
Wow, how cool. I mean, we have I think Lauren's here. Lauren just had a similar experience like that. I've made a mentor that way. I think you make a really good point, just having the both confidence and humility, right? Like that balance to go say hi to someone and appreciate what they might be able to offer. Do we have any other questions?
Take advantage of me.
Any burning questions?
I okay, I guess this is a generic one. What was your favorite thing to out of all the things that you shot for, what was your favorite one?
Oh my god. I won't lie. 80% of 90, yeah, hell, 90% of them, it's a blur. Doing this, like, for as long as I've done it, for as young as I am, and for how much I do it, it's a flippin' blur. If I had to think of like really cool things I got to do, I got to shoot a documentary on a corn muffin maker in Michigan, and that was really important for me to document this small family company that is in every grocery store in America, and to make it like kind of an art film because they have all these really cool machines from the 1940s that like all like mechanical, and like cams operate these giant arms to make these tiny little cardboard boxes. And it's been in the family, for over 100 years. And I remember touring the factory just on a whim, just for fun, and then going, "Oh my god, someone needs to document this." And I pitched it to him that day, and we came back 6 months later and shot it. Didn't go anywhere, but it was really fun to do, and it's a nice little piece, and it was on my reel for a long time. That one was really cool. I got to do a really cool one with the LA Kings. I got to do multiple tributes for the goalie Jonathan Quick, who or I have to do a couple different tributes. One of my favorite ones was the Jonathan Quick one because I was a goalie. I grew up a big Quick fan. Unfortunately, he's not the nicest person. He's okay, but he's a little quiet. But I got to do his tribute for his 700th game. And in being a goalie in hockey, that's a big deal to hit 700 games. So it was like this privilege that my boss was like, "Hey, you were a goalie. You looked up to him. You get to do this tribute." So that was really cool.
All right, that sounds fun.
There was definitely other cool stuff. I just don't remember it.
You're
Yeah.
jaded now.
Well, luckily, that's what YouTube is for, and Google. So
110% can't hide on the internet.
Yeah, do we have any other questions? We are just wrapping up here.
I have a quick question, Will.
Yep.
I'm not sure if you mentioned it when you were talking about getting like in towards like the interview processes or the process of the interviews, but was that something that you found online, or was it through the connections that you had made?
Yeah, I mean the LA Kings was connections, but if you want to work in sports and you have like any interest in working in sports, there's a website called Teamwork Online. Team as in teamwork and then the word online. And this is where all sports jobs are posted, and it's um, sports as in like anything in sports. Is there anything from like coaches to like I don't know, like ticket salespeople to then our little realm of like sports content creation. And you're gonna find, different things on there from all over. But that's where I found my job here and where I see a lot of other sports jobs posted. That's also just for this little niche. I see a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, surprisingly, not only for sports, but outside of in other production roles. I see stuff on LinkedIn. And then Holly List as well. Holly List is a good place to look for other production jobs.
Awesome. And then maybe if no one else has another question, maybe wrap it up with like a funny or a good story that you have with your time working with the Jets so far.
Oh, I mean, I told the real good one of cutting a trailer today, and that's just a blur of a day. Oh God,
Like
trying to
obviously
think
the Jets are doing quite well right now. So
they're doing really good.
everyone is quite excited.
It was funny after the first three games, we went 1-2, and we were like, "Oh boy, this is gonna be a same old Jets. This is gonna be a rough year." And we've won 3 in a row, so it's like, "Oh boy, we're riding a little high right now." The coolest thing I think I've done on the Jets so far is I did a show for CBS, and it was my first one, and I'm going to do about like 4 more this year, 4 or 5 little documentary about like the operations people, the behind the scenes people of the Jets, which you can go find on our YouTube. It's called 1JD Films Presents, and this one was with the operations staff. So it's the grounds crew, the football video guys who are the coaches' videos, like they shoot video for the coaches to break down with the team, and the equipment staff, and that was just really fun. I got to overnight with the equipment staff after we flew back from Pittsburgh. We shot the first scene with the team in Pittsburgh, flew back to Pittsburgh. I got to film on the tarmac at Pittsburgh International and at Newark. That was super fun, being around these giant jets filming. And then we came back here. We cleaned the equipment overnight to get ready for practice the next morning. So I was filming with them a lot of the night. And it was the coolest experience to deliver the show and then watch it on CBS and go and see the lead in from the news. And our time slot on CBS here in New York is the same time slot as SNL. So you flip a couple channels over and it's like, oh, this is Saturday Night Live. You flip back 2 channels, you're like, oh, I shot this. That's a cool feeling.
That is pretty cool. Wow. Well, has anybody else got any other questions? Asia, you got any?
I do have one question. I forget what they're called, but like like people make like fake commercials.
Spec ads.
Yeah. In your opinion, are they worth doing to build up your reel or?
It kind of depends. I've seen them do really good, and I've seen them do really poor. Specs can be cool. I've seen some really cool spec ads. You go on YouTube, you're going to see some really cool spec ads. It can be good because it's kind of like a proof of concept, like saying, "Hey, I can do this." I would say if you really want to do the commercial route, it's something to consider, but maybe do short films for a bit, then do a spec, right? The specs, it's going to be harder to get crew for it. Not everyone's going to want to come out on a spec ad, maybe some people, but you're probably not going to get the response to say doing a short film. It's kind of 50-50. If you've got a really cool, unique idea, I say go for it. If not, I took the route of I'm going to do these local commercials, but at least I get paid for them. And that was the big thing for me, is I get money from this. That was also why I didn't make short films for a long time, because it was, why should I pay money to do this when I could be paid money to do this?
I see.
So that was the route I took. But everybody's got their own unique route. So take the route that makes the most sense for you.
Okay. Well, thank you. Would you be okay with sharing your email possibly if people have any questions?
Yeah, definitely. It's WHAHN productions@gmail.com. Instagram is will_HAHN_productions. Please reach out. Like I mentor for Spiff, obviously. I do this. I'm here because a lot of great people took the time to talk to me and took the time to inspire me to be great. So I want to do the same for those next people that are coming up. And I know I'm young now, but hey, I'm only 2 years older than you, a lot of you, and I'm doing cool stuff. So hopefully you can be on the same trajectory to do the same.
You're such an awesome example. Such an awesome example. Thank you so much for taking the time and for being such a resource, for coming back and revisiting your old community.
Of course, I miss it. I miss it all the time.
Cool. All right, we are going to wrap up the meeting. I'm going to stop this recording.